Welcome to the Planet MicroCap Showcase Virtual 2022. I'm your host, Robert Kraft, and thank you for joining us. Now presenting at our event is Michael Winlow. He's the CEO of Emyria. It's a publicly traded company. The symbol is EMD on the ASX. And with that, Michael, take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Robert, for this opportunity to present, and thank you all for dialing in today. Really excited to present our company, explain why I think we've got such great prospects in the near term. We're a publicly traded company making treatments for neuroscience and mental health disease, and we've got some unique features that set us apart. This presentation is available on our website. Encourage you to download that, and here's our disclaimer slide for you to review at your leisure. We are publicly traded, and some of what I'll be talking about today kind of looks into the future of what we hope to achieve. Great, so with that, our focus, we're a drug development company focused on neuroscience and mental health. We've got two programs that are very active. A clinical program already at phase 3 clinical studies using our proprietary ultra-pure cannabinoid drug formulation. We've got a number of dose forms and we're pursuing an over-the-counter registration as a first milestone for our company here in Australia, but we have ambitions to take that cannabinoid program globally. Also of real interest is our preclinical pipeline of MDMA-inspired analogs. These are molecules similar to MDMA, but we believe we can tune those compounds to get different kinds of neurological effects. And one of the other things that makes us really unique is that we've been managing our own clinical service across Australia for the last 3 years, and we've built what we believe is the world's largest real-world data set on the use of GMP-grade, pharmaceutical-grade cannabinoid treatments amongst a wide and diverse patient population. And that clinical data gives us unique insights on how to develop our program and how to advance it as well. And with that, substantial IP portfolio as well. So I'll touch on those through the presentation. But the key highlights I'd like to kind of have you remember is that we have proprietary ultra-pure CBD formulations. That formulation work is partnership ready. We're in phase 3 trials. When we talk about ultra-pure CBD, we're talking about a lab-created or a synthetic dose form of CBD, which ensures the purity and makes sure that we have no THC available and meets the purity and reliability requirements for major global regulators. And that's really important. We've taken that formulation into phase 3 trials with RX5. That's currently underway in Australia. And we have preparations for RX7 going into phase 1 early next year as well. We have that amazing data set, which really sets us apart. This is high quality, robust clinical evidence on the use of cannabinoids amongst a diverse set of patients. We've published on that, and it's now guiding our drug development programs. The substantial R&D pipeline, this has been built over 15 years with our partner, the University of Western Australia. We're expanding and growing that portfolio of compounds and assets, and now identifying lead series of indications to take those forward. And we've got a really incredible team who have done this kind of work before, have on our board, as you'll see later, a number of individuals who have taken numerous products through to FDA approval and beyond. And so we've got a team, I think, that's going to help us get these things done. So with that, what's our vision? We want to register multiple compound cannabinoid treatments for multiple indications around the world and leverage our real-world data to guide that drug development. But we also want to be a global leader in the development of the next generation of neuropsychiatric treatments inspired by MDMA. And we'll talk about both of those programs in detail. First of all, advanced cannabinoid development. So if you've been following the cannabinoid space, you may be aware that there's only one treatment that really stands out in the world in terms of sales and in terms of impact, and that's GW Pharma's who are the original creators of Epidiolex. Epidiolex is a CBD-only medication. It was approved by the FDA in 2018 after 20 years of development and more than $2 billion of investment. And it got an approval at the FDA for a rare form of epilepsy. It remains today the only registered CBD-only medication available in the world. And it achieved sales of nearly $1 billion a year. And for that, it was acquired by Jazz Pharmaceuticals last year for $7.2 billion US. So it stands out as a remarkable sort of accomplishment for what cannabinoids can achieve with really good evidence, a really reliable product, and a focused clinical development strategy. So we need those two things. We need great evidence and we need really good products. And both of those have been deficient in the cannabinoid development space to date. So to address the evidence question, we initially set up a national clinical service called Emerald Clinics. We hire and employ 8 GPs. We have more than 400 referring specialists. And to date, we've seen close to 8,000 patients who've received care at our clinics, who've received access to pharmaceutical grade cannabinoids, and have participated in data collection with our clinicians. And that's allowed us to build what we believe is the world's largest real-world evidence data set, tracking how cannabinoids work. We track both the dose response, which indications seem to respond most favorably. We track adverse events, really all of the rich data that you'd want to kind of guide and make choices on what dose forms to develop and what indications to pursue for these treatments. And that data is being compiled. We're leveraging it, constantly gleaning new insights from it. We recently published an article in PLOS ONE, encourage you to check that out, which kind of makes the claim that we are the world's largest data set of its kind in the world. And I do want to point out that this kind of data is pretty unique for Australia, in that Australia had two constraints making this kind of data collection quite special in terms of its regulatory constraints around access to cannabis in Australia, that is. And that was that doctors had to be the one prescribing these treatments, and all of the products needed to be GMP or pharmaceutical quality, or as close to thereof. And that meant that we could get really robust evidence on high quality products in patients. And that's often some of the criticisms of prior research, where the product variability has been high and the conduct of the studies been quite variable. We have addressed that, I believe, in our clinical data collection. And so we can get insights like this. We can look at, quality of life parameters across a range of indications. We can get a sense of what it is like to be a patient with some of these conditions, what the primary kind of concerns are beyond just the primary diagnosis. For example, in patients with post-traumatic stress disorder, sleep disturbance and stress, not unsurprisingly, are a number of key issues. If you have chronic non-cancer pain, there's a heavy anxiety component to that condition as well. And this is really interesting when we think about what indications we want to pursue and where we might wish to make a treatment. We can also track how cannabinoids influence these quality of life layers across different indications as well, and from there make educated choices on where we're going to develop our treatments. And so that's led us to develop RX platform. What we're trying to do now that we have some great evidence behind where cannabinoids work is solve the problem of having a really reliable product. In the Australian experience, we have more than 250 different cannabinoid products. A lot of them are copycats of each other and quite generic. We also know that what's on the label is not often what's in the box for these products as well. There's a lot of variability of potency, and of real importance is a huge variability in the bioavailability of these drugs as well. That is, how much these drugs can deliver of the CBD, say, into the bloodstream if you take it orally. And we know that with cannabinoids, a notoriously poor bioavailability, meaning only a very small fraction of what you take orally actually makes its way to the bloodstream where it can do work. And so that needs to be solved. So we need a reliable product that's consistently reliable, that has great bioavailability, and ideally comes in a dose form that the patients prefer. And so with that in mind, we developed the RX platform. We made some really important deliberate choices about how we're going to pursue a cannabinoid treatment. We wanted to create a solid oral capsule. We wanted to use a highly purified form of CBD to ensure that there was no detectable THC or other impurities. We wanted to use an API that had a drug master file with the FDA so that we can support registration and efforts with those major regulators. We wanted to create novel IP around the formulation and improve the bioavailability and tolerability of these drug products to stand out from everything else that's out there. And that is what led us to develop the RX platform, and we now have 2 dose forms that we're advancing into clinical studies. The first of those is EMD RX5. This is a low-dose CBD capsule uniquely developed for the Australian over-the-counter opportunity. We did a head-to-head with Epidiolex, that large product that I showed earlier. That is a CBD oil, the only registered CBD in the world. And what we're able to demonstrate in that head-to-head phase 1 comparison is that we were able to achieve equivalent bioavailability, meaning we were able to deliver the same amount of CBD into the bloodstream over time, but we had some unique and favorable features. We had a slow release profile. We're able to maintain higher dose levels of CBD in the blood hours 3 to 8, and we had less variability between the patients, between dosing as well. And all of that supports the clinical applications and our claims of this product having key advantages over other dose forms in terms of the dosing and the indications that we wish to pursue. And so we also were able to see how we compare against other products. And what was interesting was that looking at the published literature, the bioavailability we were able to achieve was significantly more than other products have published and claimed. And we think that's largely due to the fact that there's a huge variability in the excipients that get used. And we know that Epidiolex invested heavily to ensure they had a world-class excipient. They use a special form of sesame oil for their CBD, and it really makes a difference what you mix your CBD with. And other forms can achieve substantially less bioavailability, and that's not often fully appreciated. So we're really pleased. Equivalent bioavailability to Epidiolex, a favorable PK profile in a convenient, solid oral dose form. And so with that, we're now pursuing what we think is a massive opportunity, which is the treatment of symptoms of psychological distress. What we're talking about here is mild symptoms of anxiety, nervous tension, stress, sleep disturbance, can also manifest as GI upset. We're tracking all of those things in a unique population as part of our phase 3 study. We have confidence we're tackling the right indication as informed by the real world evidence and our experience treating real patients with CBD in our clinics. And we're now in a advanced phase 3 clinical trial here in Australia, running that study right across Australia. We also believe that now we've made a dose form that is so reliable and has a proven purity and consistency that it also could meet the requirements for approval in major overseas regulators in Europe and the US. So other products available in Australia have lower tolerances for purity. They allow other cannabinoids to be present, including THC up to 1%, which we know would not be accepted by a major regulator like the FDA. And therefore, the purity of our product can really stand out and greatly increases its global market potential. So that's on the dose form, but we also think the evidence that we have behind these products as well will support indication expansion across a range of indications, so we can expand both the indications and the geography, greatly improving the commercial potential of our product. And that's just the first one, RX5. Well, our clinical experience also showed that through our care model and the use of cannabinoids, we've been able to reduce opioids by 30%. We did a really remarkable study with IQVIA, where we were able to look at pharmacy dispensing data of our patients and look back in time to the 12 months before they ever started treatment with us at our clinics. And we're able to see that high opioid requirements were consistent for 12 months before coming to our clinics. And then once starting on cannabinoid treatment, we're able to bring down that opioid use by 30% in just 6 months, which is a significant reduction. We're also able to track that number went back up again once cannabinoids were stopped. So that's given us a lot of confidence that there's a role here for cannabinoid treatment in high opioid required dependent patients. And that also has led to us pursuing and exploring prescription applications for CBD. We have another dose form called RX7, which in animal studies showed more than 4 times the bioavailability of Epidiolex. And we think that increased bioavailability advantage can persist into people as well, into human studies. And there's a range of US-focused FDA indications that we are now planning and scoping for to take that drug forward as well. We're also recently accepted into the National Institutes of Health PSPP program, Preclinical Screening Platform for Pain program, which is a fully funded, staged preclinical interrogation of our drug asset that will hope to reveal its application and potential for use in a variety of pain indications. And we're looking forward to taking both RX5 and 7 through that program in the coming months. Terrific. So just to wrap up on the cannabinoid program, and then I'll quickly go through the cannabinoid experience. As you can see, this is just the range of indications that we've seen at our clinics. And so it gives you a sense of the breadth of the clinical experience and knowledge we have on where cannabinoids may play a role in treating some of these conditions as well. And that's going to guide, our future indication expansion and drug development efforts. So quickly, in our MDMA inspired program. So the other thing that I'm equally excited by is our substantial preclinical R&D pipeline. We're working with MDMA, which is currently an illegal amphetamine. It's illegal around the world, but has some remarkable qualities. It greatly increases the presence in the neurological synapse of serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter associated with well-being, dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and satisfaction, and noradrenaline, related to adrenaline, associated with the fight or flight response. And so MDMA uniquely creates this activation, this excitement, but also intense feelings of sociability and even euphoria. And that's one of the reasons why it's become such an interesting drug as an adjunct to psychotherapy recently. But we think this has got a remarkable molecule. And one of the reasons we think we can make improvements or changes to this molecule, it's got lots of points of diversification. We know that we can make adjustments to its chemical structure and elicit different kinds of neurological effects, and therefore create new neuropsychiatric treatments for a range of disorders. And so we have a partnership with UWA, the University of Western Australia, who've been building a compound library inspired by MDMA for more than 10 years. We've now almost doubled that library. We have 140 novel chemical entities that we are now taking through a preclinical screening cascade, and we have a number of applications that we're really excited to pursue. We do have a webinar that covers this program in depth that I encourage you to check out. It's available on our website as well. But just really quickly, one of the clinical opportunities here, so there's really 3 areas that we're interested in. The first of which is using the advantages of MDMA's psychological qualities as an adjunct for psychotherapy. Those MDMA uniquely increases feelings of well-being and sociability. It decreases feelings of fear and defensiveness, making it a really powerful adjunct to psychotherapy for conditions like post-traumatic stress disorder. And as you may be tracking, MDMA-assisted psychotherapy is showing tremendous promise as a treatment for severe and long-standing post-traumatic stress disorder, where recent studies show that nearly 2/3 of patients receiving this treatment modality no longer had the symptoms of PTSD after just 3 intense sessions, which is really remarkable. But one of the concerns is that these sessions do run for a long time, 6 to 12 hours at a time. So could we accelerate the action of MDMA and make for a shorter acting clinical experience? I'm going to move through these slides quickly because I know I'm taking a lot of time here, but I did want to just point out that our early experimental results show that we are able to make MDMA compounds with much shorter half-lives, therefore creating the possibility of a shorter and faster acting MDMA-like experience to be supported with therapy and therefore perhaps fit more conveniently in a clinical setting. The other application is for Parkinson's disease. Actually, this was the original inspiration behind the creation of this library at the University of Western Australia. Anecdotally, MDMA can greatly improve those jerky movements that Parkinson's patients can sometimes experience after they've been on treatment with L-DOPA for a long period of time. And what MDMA can do is completely smooth out those jerky movements. And in some of the early experimental research, we were able to show that some of the compounds from this library more than doubled the on time, which is the smoothing out of those jerky movements, in a gold standard primate model without creating the psychoactivity that MDMA is sometimes associated with. So getting the very best benefits from MDMA, but without the high, and really proof that we can make adjustments to these molecules and get different kinds of clinical effects. And so we're really excited about the potential for these MDMA analogs to address long-standing Parkinson's disease. And we've also found that these MDMA molecules can help reverse some of the fibrosis risks that MDMA can be associated with. We screen our library for fibrotic-like action. MDMA can be associated with heart valvulopathy, which is a stiffening of the heart valve. So one of the things we're very keen to do with all of our compounds is ensure that there's no low risk for that kind of stiffening effect in the body. And as part of our screening, we actually can find compounds that may have the absolute reverse effect, which is to reverse the fibrotic potential. And that's also really exciting as well. So we do have a small program underway looking at the anti-fibrosis effect. And through some early clinical research, proof of concept work, we are seeing that at some dose concentrations, that fibrotic effect, anti-fibrosis effect, is present and active. And that's also tremendously exciting for this program as well. So just to summarize here, large compound library, deep, really promising preclinical asset, uniquely developed over 10 or 15 years. So we're coming at this with a sprinting head start, and we see broad applicability for a range of major unmet needs covering neuropsychiatry and potentially even in fibrosis. So just to wrap up a few things about the corporate, an amazing team to take us forward, some highly experienced executives who have founded and led multiple transactions in the biotech space, Stuart Washer and Matt Callahan, multiple FDA approvals between them, and numerous successful listed ASX companies. Professor Sir John Tuke in the middle there, knighted for services to medicine, the ex-president of the Academy of Medical Sciences in the UK, previous advisor to Google DeepMind, and an expert in learning health system, who's really advising us on how we can best learn from patients while they're receiving care from us. Dr. Karen Smith, a biopharma executive, the ex-global head of research and development and chief medical officer at Jazz Pharmaceuticals, noted earlier in the deck, who's been part of multiple major transactions and FDA approvals. Myself, with a background in clinical trials and clinical medicine, and I've spent time in a big data company at Palantir in the US, which you may be aware of, and Alistair Vickery, who is a professor of general practice and chair of a not-for-profit mental health agency as well. So a really great team. Some amazing clinical advisors also, psychiatrists, pain medicine, clinical researchers, formulation experts, neuropharmacologists amongst them, a wonderful team supporting our work as well. Got a great portfolio of assets in terms of IP and patents. This continues to grow, covering both novel chemical entities and methods of treatment, giving us a really robust wall there. And finally, some really great support from institutional investors. We, in fact, have really generous participation from Australia's wealthiest man, the Forrest family, through their healthcare-focused investment vehicle, 10 Mile, part of the Tattarang family. And finally, what to look forward to in the next 12 months. Well, we've achieved a tremendous amount in 12 months, but our phase 3 will be underway. We'll be concluding that, announcing commercial strategies for Australia and elsewhere for that RX5 program. RX7 making progress into phase 1, and the announcement of US-focused indications, and then further readouts from our preclinical program covering the MDMA program, and the selection of lead compounds to commercialize for that program as well. So thank you for your time. I'd love to get some questions if we have time for that. And I encourage you to go to our website, Interactive Investor Hub, to learn more.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, thank you so much for your presentation here today. We really do appreciate it. So my first question for you, and apologies if I may have missed it, but are you trying to get approval in Australia first, and then FDA approval? And if Australia, what, for those of us in North America that don't know the process there, is it any different than FDA approval? Love to learn more there.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so we are focused right now, RX5, very much on approval for over-the-counter. That's a pharmacist only regulatory approval here in Australia. The reason for that is Australia kind of drew up special rules for over-the-counter for cannabis. They said, hey, look, we know there's a lot of pressure to get cannabis in Australia. It's really hard to get. It's expensive. You have to go to a doctor. We're going to create a pathway where you can achieve registration, get pharmacist-only approval, but you still need to do the hard work, still requires phase 3 clinical trials, all the rest. But what that might mean is that you suddenly can be available to patients without a prescription. Patients can pay out of pocket and get access to these treatments. We know there's massive demand for this product. So we saw an opportunity. We looked at our data. We saw that we could develop something. Saw an opportunity to develop a unique product for this space particularly, and so we're sprinting towards approval in Australia first. We still think that's a $100 million product, at sales with conservative estimates eventually. So certainly worthwhile, and then really validation of our whole model that backs us up for them pursuing bigger, more ambitious, and larger indication and markets elsewhere in the world. So quickly following that, we'll be shooting for FDA.
Very good. And so, I mean, is the only well, firstly, is there any cannabis-derived OTC products available right now in Australia? Or if yes, then what are they?
Yeah, there are not actually. No, the TPAs, they've made the rule. There are a number that are kind of companies that are moving into that space and trying to get going with phase 3 trials, et cetera, and kind of exploring, where the opportunities are there. But again, I think, what makes our product unique is it's a solid oral capsule of a synthetic CBD. That's going to give us cost advantages long term because we don't have all that extra expense and overhead. We can, use cost engineering really to get that down. We also have unique clinical pharmacological profile, as you saw that head-to-head with Epidiolex. We know what we can deliver into the bloodstream over time. We have a good sense of that, and we have a really good idea of what indications to aim at first, as informed by our real-world evidence, which we think de-risks the phase 3 program significantly. So I think we'll be one of the first to market there, and I think we'll outcompete on those clinical pharmacology properties.
Absolutely. So just to quickly also refresh, so you're in the middle of phase 3, or you're going to be starting phase 3 in 2023?
We have phase 3 approval, and we're
okay.
Yep, we've already qualified more than 10 sites around Australia. The site initiations are underway. Labeling's happening, and so I believe dosing will happen this month. We've just been waiting to get some of those permissions through, but everything's lined up, locked and loaded. We'll be, I think, well over 100 patients enrolled by Q1 next year, and we should be, soon after that, hopefully concluded the study. We're very, very ambitious. We'll be able to go very quickly once everything's underway.
Absolutely. Because I mean, from point, look, it's always a moving target as to when it's going to be finished. But let's say at the conclusion of phase 3, let's say, obviously, if things work out, from that point to then, Australian approval for commercialization, what's usually that time frame?
Yeah, our TGA unfortunately makes no commitment to how quickly they're going to review your package. So it can be, somewhere between 6, even we've heard as long as 18 months. I think they're motivated to have products approved. I think they'll be very, persuaded by sort of the package we hope to put in front of them. So I'm hoping it's on the shorter end of that timeline, and hopefully we get less questions. But we're looking towards the end of next year, and hopefully sales soon after that.
Absolutely. So then, to final question then for you here today, and this is a question I'm asking literally everybody, all the companies that are presenting. We're in tough markets right now, globally. So what would you say are some of the measures that the company is taking in order to mitigate some of those macroeconomic pressures and risks out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're definitely focusing where we've been investing. We've invested heavily in the clinics, the data collection. That's been a significant commitment of time, effort, and resources financially. So we're looking for ways to sort of minimize some of the outlay that those clinics absorb really from us, now that our focus has shifted on drug development. So we're very focused now on hitting our milestones, executing on the phase 3, initiating the US program, and getting good readouts from smart choices on our preclinical program for the MDMA analogs. So I think we're really, if we want to get a readout on that phase 3, get that done, get commercial partners for the phase 3, initiate the US program with our RX7 program, and get some of those early readouts from MDMA. So we're closing ranks on our drug development and registration activities.
Very good. All right. Well, Michael, thank you so much for your presentation today. Really do appreciate it. To everybody watching and listening, thank you for participating, and enjoy the rest of your conference. Michael, thank you again.
Thank you, Robert. And thanks everyone for dialing in.